Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I've always said that I wish I had half the confidence of these evangelical ex-Muslims. I mean, just listen to how confident this one is.
And at the end, when we tie it all up, you will for sure know that the Quran is not from God.
Okay, so he's going to present some arguments that he thinks proves that the Quran is not from God. Okay?
Now, what is very important, now we're going to switch a little bit, and we're going to go to what the Quran does to maintain or force rhymes. So in Surah Mu'minun, Surah 23, I believe, it says, Turi Sina, the Mount of Sina. Okay? But in Surah Teen, that becomes Turi Sinin. Why? The only thing that comes to mind is it's a spelling change just to maintain a rhyme.
Okay, so he basically makes an argument from ignorance when he said, I don't know why there is a spelling change, therefore the word was made up to maintain a rhyme. Okay? That's the fallacy of arguing from ignorance. It's a well-known fallacy. And when he says the only thing that comes to mind, right, which mind exactly are we referring to? Is it perhaps Imru al-Qais's mind? Or maybe Antar ibn Shaddad's mind? One of the great poets? No, it's friggin' Gondal's mind. One of the linguists, one of the very early linguists, Al-Akhfash, and also Ibn Manzur, they both said that Sinin is the plural of Sininiya, which is a type of tree. Al-Tabari also mentions that Sinin means a mountain that has vegetation. So the word has meaning. Okay? The word Sininiya, which is the singular of Sinin, is not used often. Another stupid point that he mentioned was that the word was made up to force or maintain a rhyme. The verse in question is the second verse of the surah, and more importantly, it's the verse that begins the rhyme. So the rhyme in, ya nun, or yn, begins with that verse, وَطُورِ سِينِينَ. So there was no rhyme to maintain before that verse. So the first verse is وَالتِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونَ, وَطُورِ سِينِينَ is the second one. There is nothing to maintain before it. So his argument that the author of the Quran got stuck and had to invent a word to maintain a rhyme is just a stupid argument. Okay, let's see what he has to say next.
Both the words at the end, Zanjabila, Salsabila, are both made up words.
Now, does his source, Arthur Jeffrey, say that the Quran made up the word Zanjabil? Does Arthur Jeffrey say that the Quran invented the word? Actually, no. He says the opposite. He says that the word Zanjabil was an early borrowing. And he even mentions that the early poets, pre-Islamic poetry, used the word Zanjabil. So just two examples of this. Two poets come to mind, Al-Musayyib bin Als and Qais ibn al-Hatim. Both are pre-Islamic poets and both used the word Zanjabil. Embarrassing, right? Okay, let's see what he has to say next.
Okay, and this is the word Abba. Okay, it occurs only in a Meccan surah. They were puzzled by the word, as usual, because Muhammad had a knack for inventing words. What also is important that the Quran keeps telling people that it's in clear Arabic, and there's a verse that says, Haza Arabi wa Ajami, that the messenger is Arabic, but there's foreign words, and this was an objection of the kuffar as well. So the Quran goes to great lengths that it's very clear. But as you can see, this word is again made up, like they're kind of not sure what it's doing.
Okay, this time with another word, Abba, which occurs once in a Meccan surah, and he says that it's made up, that the Prophet, peace be upon him, made it up to maintain a rhyme. And he backs this up using Arthur Jeffrey again. Now let's read what Arthur Jeffrey says in the same page that he's sharing with us. Okay, Jeffrey says that it was probably an early borrowing from the Mesopotamian area. Okay, an early borrowing is different from it was invented by the Quran. An early borrowing means that the word was already there when the Quran came. I mean, it's on the same freaking page that you're sharing, man. This is embarrassing. And you cannot equate that someone being puzzled by the word means that the word is made up. This is a false equivocation, okay? If you open a very early tafsir like Tabari, he quotes Ibn Abbas and many other early tabi'een who say that Abba means vegetation that cattle eat, but humans do not eat. Okay, so the word has a meaning, and it's not an invented word by the Quran. And one last thing. The verse says, وَفَاكِهَةً وَأَبَّا, and fruits and vegetation for your cattle. Okay? Now, is there any other word different from Abba that could have been used if Abba was indeed made up? Was there any easier substitute? Yeah. Mar'a. وَفَاكِهَةً وَمَرْعَى. Mar'a, kind of a synonym for Abba, and it's mentioned by Tabari in his tafsir. So the verse could have been وَفَاكِهَةً وَمَرْعَى. The rhyme is maintained, and it has a very similar meaning. So there is no problem, really.
What also is important that the Quran keeps telling people that it's in clear Arabic, and there's a verse that says Haza Arabi wa Ajami, that the messenger is Arabic, but there's foreign words, and this was an objection of the kuffar as well.
Okay, at this point, it's becoming a circus, really, because there is no verse in the Quran that says Haza Arabi wa Ajami, and if it was to be translated, it would be like, this is Arabic and foreign, which doesn't really make sense. But I'm going to be charitable, I'm going to help him out. The only two possible verses in the Quran that could be referring to are verse 44 in chapter 41 and verse 103 in chapter 16. So let's quickly check 44:21 and see what it says. And if we had made it a non-Arabic Quran, they would have said, why are its verses not explained in detail in our language? Is it a foreign recitation and this is an Arab messenger? So this is a conditional statement. So Allah in the Quran says, and if we had made it a non-Arabic Quran, if the language of the Quran was not Arabic, then these polytheists would have said, how come this is an Arab messenger, but the book that he's coming with is not Arabic? Okay? It's a conditional statement. The verse doesn't say that the polytheists came to the Prophet and told him, look, we cannot understand this Quran because there are a bunch of words that are foreign right here and we don't know what they say. They didn't say this. And the second possible verse that he could be referring to is verse 103:16. And we certainly know that they say it is only a human being who teaches the Prophet. The tongue of the one they refer to is foreign, and this Quran is in clear Arabic language. So the polytheists were accusing the Prophet of learning the stories of the Quran from a young Roman slave. They weren't accusing him of borrowing or inventing new words or using foreign words that they know nothing of. And the Quran answers them by saying that this young boy has a foreign tongue. He cannot speak Arabic properly. And this Quran is in clear Arabic language, so it doesn't make sense. And in fact, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was calling him to Islam, not the other way around. One final thing, since he relies on Arthur Jeffrey, I think it's important to say that Arthur Jeffrey is a Christian Orientalist. He published his book on the foreign vocabulary of the Quran in 1938, I think. And when he sometimes cannot find an origin of a certain word, he says he seems to have invented it, referring to the author of the Quran, of course. And this is a non sequitur, because the way he concludes this is that since a certain word is not found in pre-Islamic poetry, therefore it seems that he invented it. Let me tell you why it's a non sequitur. First of all, not all the pre-Islamic poetry reached us in the 21st century. Second, not all the words of the Arabic language were used in pre-Islamic poetry. The Arabic language is so vast that it's impossible that the entire list of the Arabic vocabulary was used by the pre-Islamic poets. Therefore, pointing at a word and saying, this is made up, this is invented, is a non sequitur. It doesn't necessarily follow. And let's remember, who's saying that it's invented? Is it Al-Kasai? Is it Sibawayh? No, it's freaking Arthur Jeffrey, a Christian Orientalist who published this book in 1938. So, in the end, just keep in mind that No matter how confident someone is speaking, don't be fooled and double check and triple check what he says, especially if it's one of these evangelical ex-Muslims.